Get ready for an all-new, all-different origin of Space Ghost when Jace's reckless joyriding catches the attention of a giant energy monster. It's all right here in our review of Space Ghost number 2 from Dynamite Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. Let's take less than 60 seconds to recap what happened in issue number 1 before we dig into the review. We're introduced to Jan, Jace, and their pet monkey Blip as their research colony is attacked by space pirates. During the attack, their father is killed, and we learn through the course of the action that the space pirates are after an experimental AI program that the father had secretly implanted in Blip's brain. So as the two siblings and the monkey work their way through the research colony and try to escape the devastation, Space Ghost arrives to put the pirates down and take the kids under their wing. However, none of them are completely aware of why the space pirates are after Blip the monkey. That brings us to Space Ghost number 2. We begin with a brief flashback to a mining colony on the planet Vector. The colony is mining some kind of ultra rare material called, I'm going to try this, styranotanium. I think is the way you say that. That's a tongue twister. The colony is experiencing some kind of incident that destroys the colony and actually devastates the entire planet. And there's only one survivor left, a research scientist by the name of Dax. And in that incident, Dax loses his wife and his child, but he chooses to remain on the planet, and Planet Vector eventually becomes nicknamed Ghost Planet. That brings us back to now. Space Ghost in his ship takes Jan, Jace, and Blip back to Ghost Planet, where his base of operations contains all kinds of interesting, strange alien artifacts, all kinds of unique technology, and things that are very surprising and sort of interesting and curiosity-inducing for Jan and Jace. But Space Ghost says, don't touch anything, just make yourselves at home, but you got to stay here until it's safe, until we can find out what's going on with RoboCorp and why they sent those mercenaries and pirates after your monkey. Jan gets a little impatient because she's cooped up inside of Space Ghost's base because there's no good food, there's nothing to keep them occupied, and she's still grieving over the loss of her father, and she's anxious to get out of the base to find better food, better things to do, and to find out who is responsible for her father's death. Space Ghost says, nope, no way, you're not going anywhere, and you can see that he starts to develop an ultra protective relationship with the two siblings, even though he doesn't really know them on a personal level. But while the two are bickering back and forth about staying put inside the base, Space Ghost's warning system sends an alert that says there's a meteor storm that's headed right for them, so he flies off to take care of the threat before anything else happens. So Space Ghost is up in orbit, flying around using his power bands to deflect meteors, destroy meteors, and one in particular crashes down on the planet and something glowing comes out of it. While he's off and flying about trying to do his thing to keep the planet safe, Jan starts rummaging through his computer files and learns that RoboCorp had listed Planet Vector, which is now nicknamed Ghost Planet, as completely wiped out by a massive radiation leak. And she now knows that's not true because they're on the planet. There is no radiation to be found. So something happened to destroy the colony and Dax's family, but it's not anything that RoboCorp is officially reporting. Meanwhile, Jace, who is in this iteration the younger sibling, decides to go off and explore the base because he's super bored, there's no video games, and he doesn't have anything to do. He decides, of course, to do the exact wrong thing, which is take Space Ghost's ship off for a joyride. And while he's zooming through the atmosphere of Ghost Planet, he unfortunately catches the attention of the glowing thing that came out of the meteor, which turns out to be a giant space energy monster. Jan reports the situation to Space Ghost. He gets done fighting destroying the meteors and flies over to help and assist Jace with the energy monster, but all his energy band attacks do nothing, and in fact they figure out that the energy is now feeding the monster, making it bigger and stronger. From the safety of the base, Jan comes up with a plan. She says, well, if it's feeding on energy, we can do something about that. So she gives Jace and Space Ghost in the directions to lure the monster over to a giant antenna, which gives them the opportunity, once Space Ghost figures out what she's doing, to form a bridge and shunt the monster off and send it into space into the into another solar system. And that's the end of the monster. Space Ghost now realizes that these kids are smarter than the average kid, and they're orphans at this point. So now he feels like a responsibility to take them under his wing. He gives them masks, rocket packs, utility belts, and now they have formed a super team. Pretty solid issue. Let's move over to the technical aspects, starting with the character development. If you've never heard of an origin story before for Space Ghost, now you have it. Now, to be clear, former publishers who have published a Space Ghost comic have also published their own version of an origin story for the spacefaring vigilante, but this one is completely different than anything you've read before. And to David Pepos' credit, who's the writer, he puts a strong emphasis on a motivation that's fueled by loss and grief and righteous anger, very relatable and empathetic or sympathetic characteristics that really get you on Space Ghost's side and kind of root for him as far as somebody who's out there being a hero for the right reasons. Let's move over to the artwork. The artist on this book is Jonathan Lau, who is one of, in my opinion anyway, one of Dynamite's best artists that they have on tap. You know, when they can scrape enough money together to afford him, because he is one of their best artists. You get lots of drama, big, bold visuals. Lau is a master at using shadow and silhouette to create drama, and you get a lot of that here. The space action, flying and fighting, and all the things that come along with it look fantastic. And the tragic events that created this version of Space Ghost are just packed with a lot of emotional framing. So overall, a really good set of visuals from Jonathan Lau. Let's move over to pacing and structure. The entire script, by and large, is very firm foundation for telling a kind of origin story that also sets the stage for where the team goes next. The incident that gives birth to Space Ghost is obscured, but you get all the pieces that you need to inform why Dax eventually assumes the mantle of Space Ghost and how that drives him going forward, which is exactly what you want out of an origin story. The scenes are clear, transitions are smooth, and the overall reading experience moves very well. The minor down point in the structure is the catalyst that gets Space Ghost to concede that he needs to bring these kids under his wing and train them as, sort of junior partners or sidekicks. It feels a little forced. It just sort of comes out of nowhere, which is the giant energy monster. I mean, you see it very briefly how it comes to be where it is, but it just sort of feels like, oh, we invented an excuse for you to fight together as a team. I mean, it works technically speaking, but it didn't feel very organic. It just feels like something that was just rammed right in there to make it happen. Let's move over to talking about the theme. Theme in this case seems to be the idea of people coming together for shared trauma or shared hardship. Dax becomes Space Ghost in response to the loss of his family. Jan and Jace share a similar circumstance, although the reverse, the kids losing the parent instead of the parent losing the kids. And their collective sort of angst or anger, or righteous anger, I should say, towards RoboCorp helps catalyze why they come together in the first place. So they have shared goals and shared trauma, and those sharings bring them all together. If you are already a fan of Space Ghost, but particularly from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, you're going to find a lot of Easter eggs or touch points that are going to look really familiar to you. So Jan and Jace have fun guessing the nature of what Space Ghost power bands can do, and some of the ideas they come up with are powers that we've seen through the course of the cartoon. So even though they're guessing, we already know that those things are possible. The energy monster obviously is a callback to the original Space Ghost cartoon. As a matter of fact, if you watch the intro for Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure, the energy monster makes an appearance in that intro montage. And when Space Ghost takes the siblings under his wing and says, "Okay, I'm going to train you. You're going to be my sidekicks," he gives them the costume elements that make them look exactly like the Jan and Jace that you're used to seeing from the cartoon, mask and all. So a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of touch points that kind of bridge the original source material with this new version. Final thoughts. What do we think about Space Ghost number 2 from Dynamite Comics? You get a new origin story for the titular character. You get some familiar enemies, and you get the whole setup that brings the team together for the adventures going forward. The script, generally speaking, is very well done and put together. You get lots of action, strong emotional beats, and then Lau's artwork, especially his mastery of using deep dark shadows and silhouettes to create drama, is really a nice complement to Pepos's darker toned and more serious script. So therefore, we're going to give Space Ghost #2 from Dynamite Comics an 8.8 out of 10. And the only reason it's slightly lower is because of that forced entry of the energy monster. Even though it's a nice Easter egg, it sort of comes out of nowhere. Let us know what you think. Are you a fan of the original Hanna-Barbera Space Ghost cartoon? If you are, give us a thumbs up. And if you like this version also, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment and let us know what you think. Thank you very much for joining. And if you like more reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.